Welcome to the RSI Perseus. This was shot in 4.4 live, and all owners of the Perseus can spawn it and enjoy it. And soon, I suspect many more will be on the RSI show floor, which starts the IAE off with a bang with this ship. Thank to my long-term subscribers for putting up with me. So, this ship has a push towards its torpedoes and a reasonable amount of space, as well as, of course, its main attraction, two massive ship-to-ship style turrets that remind many of us of Javelin style turrets, the secondaries on the Javelin, where they have larger turrets and then they have a mini turret on top that also slews at the same time, and you can group the guns to only fire the smaller Gatlings or fire the larger normal ballistics that are much larger in size on their own. Now, this ship, once you get used to it, is a story of two floors, and it's very easy to get back and forth. One thing to note, though, is that the front turret, the upper turret, as it's called, is on the front of the ship, and then you have the aft turret, which is on the bottom of the ship, facing back. Notice the loss of sight lines due to the silhouette of the ship. So where the engine cowlings are, which stick out a little bit, even with the landing gears raised, they take up some space. However, you gain some back due to the triangular areas, as you see right there, that the angles of the turret can slew. Also, the turrets do have a very generous upper arc, in the sense of if it's on the bottom of the ship, they can fire almost directly down in all directions, and the upper turret can shoot almost directly up in all directions. Now, it is worth noting, though, that just like this lower turret has an issue with angles, the front upper turret has an issue with the bridge being in the way of some of its angles, if it's facing directly backwards. Fortunately, this one has excellent angles to work with. Footage directly showing you how the weapon groupings operate and the slewing of both weapon systems into one turret, which is very nice. You can change your groupings to have them all shoot at the same time, or vice versa, shoot one group 1 or group 2. Note that is very useful because you will have two pips that you will have to kind of rectify if you have them all in the same group. So translation, one of them is going to be missing, or wasting a little bit of ammunition to get it on target at the same time. Notice the bridge blocking your rear view on the larger turret. However, a creative pilot would easily be able to throw that ship 90 degrees vertical and get you on target, because remember, we have that generous arc upwards. But on to one of the more interesting parts of the ship. The real showstopper to me is the cargo bay. It's a little awkward to work when you're talking about not 0G, but there is two different elevators in the cargo bay, a normal cargo hold style bay, and then a crew style elevator that would allow you to still keep pressure in the cargo bay and obviously keep it safe. It's a lot easier to maintain security on this thing because it has an enclosed door at the top of the elevator, it's smaller pad, less chance of somebody sneaking on, etc. And you're not risking your whole cargo lowering the elevator, which some ships do still have that problem, some of the more older ships. One of the things I thought was really interesting about the Perseus is these small windows next to the other way to get in, which is these neat little docking doors. You'll note that I thought that was the latch to open this. That was actually the cargo bay elevator behind me. And then the docking door, I finally realized that the switch is on the doors themselves. A lot like the Polaris, the RSI Polaris, it reminds me a lot of that on a smaller scale. Sure, there's no ramps or anything, but it has these little collars that are off to the sides of the cargo bay that reminds me a lot of the Polaris's larger doors with the ramps, although this is obviously more geared towards 0G, which is fine. I think this is very interesting. It's good relationship with the fleet. I could see this ship pulling up next to another vessel in the fleet and getting its reload of torpedoes and ammunition and fuel for onboard needs. One of the photos I've already seen is somebody who put 2 Furies inside the cargo bay. So that's another example of even more supplies needed to rearm and refuel squeezed in there somehow. But that's not all an issue, because if you're dealing with just the torpedoes specifically, there is a wonderful amount of storage space. And this is learning from the lessons they learned from the Polaris with the revolver style cylinders that are very difficult to open and close and rotate, and then you have to move them. every single one of these torpedoes is accessible from a person with a tractor beam or with an ATLS suit, etc., that's suited up for this, can quickly sling these out, and then you have your door right to your right that has, it's also not just a door, and the elevator's below you, but the door is not just a door, it is an actual dock, so you can attach to a resupply vessel and kick right over to get more gear. And that way, if you blow up your torpedo by accident, then you can take down 2 ships instead of 1. It's great. But one of the coolest things of this area is there's a little Easter egg here. Their button there turns on a basketball court, which was found in less than minutes after this hit 4.4 live. Again, this was all recorded in 4.4 live. I own the ship. I CCU'd to it. As a reminder, I don't pick up a lot of ships at full price anymore. I just CCU through. I had gave up my ironclad assault for this, so I'm down to 1 ironclad CCU I have sitting on ice just in case I need it when that finally shows the hell up. But in this case, these gantries that are here are quite a cool little feature. Easter eggs or not, it is nice. I do want to point out one thing about that button that we started out with. It is right next to the door that opens that gigantic cargo elevator. So that's not exactly the best option, because if you hit the one to the left, you open a basketball court. You hit the one to the right, everybody suited up for basketball, not for deep space, suddenly is going into deep space if they're not quick enough to jump off the platform. A little different. So again, that's not the point of this ship. The point is that it's combat, it's fun, it's interesting. It's got a pool table, it's got a whole half-court basketball court. Neither one is like exactly supported yet, but they are really nice to have in the game. It has 6 beds on board. I am not going to go through showing you every single one of them because they're all right next to each other. And they are, in RSI fashion, escape pods. Plus, the captain has his own bed right behind the bridge. The bridge has its own doorway, which I do want to show you right after this wonderful, wonderful main cannon volley. So the upper deck is where the bridge is, the captain's quarters is, as well as some of the escape systems that are not involving the beds down in the crew quarters. And this door here is actually pretty interesting. It's meant for zero-G activities, as well as, if you notice, there's 3 doors here. Crew mentioned that he insisted on multiple doors if they were going to have a weak point added right behind the bridge of the ship. But there's this little balcony here. And as the players who are running the ship, this is actually a neat little balcony when you land somewhere or you're checking out a salvaging wreck or whatever operation you're doing. It also gives the attackers kind of a place to land. But as a defender, you do have this little balcony, and I actually like that there's this waist-height little defensive thing where you can crouch behind, reload, figure out your weapons, go back and fight. You could come out here, close the doors behind you, and fend off, boarders and such, but they can do the same thing to you. But yeah, I've never, I think I pointed out in the Zeus, in the Zeus MK Mark IIs, there was a neat little porch front, I called it, and that's actually a true porch front, though, on this one. You can see the backup ladder there if the power's out to the elevators. And then we go past the escape pods into the captain's quarters. And the captain's quarters is actually quite neat. There's 4 different flare items places, it looked like, and then there may even be more on these shelves, or at the very least, I don't know about this moment, but there will be in the future. Clearly, it looks like it's designed to be storing things. You can see a full-blown suit locker, as well as they have their own hygiene. So there's a shower, toilet, restroom, just like the crew have. The cruise is bigger. The mirrors actually work on here, unlike the Polaris, unless the Polaris had a shader pass. I haven't had a chance to check it. And then a small weapon locker. No heavy weapon on the bridge or the captain's quarters thing, but you can see there's an awful lot of storage, personal storage on board, so you could, in theory, put the weapon in there if it fit. The way this chair works is pretty complicated, but it reminds me a lot of the lessons learned from the Polaris, where there is a chair when you can turn it, and instead of watching a bunch of cells, a pair of brig cells, or medical rooms, etc., the camera is facing outside the captain's door, and then they have control over the door and their lighting for the room in that space. And then there's a little bench over there so people could come in, get chewed out, or get their instructions on their mission, etc. Good little RP thing. Also, worth noting, this is a good little fallback position if the bridge is compromised and you need to regroup. In theory, if you somehow manage to hole up in here when they ran past, you have a camera that physically shows you if anybody's in the hallway right here. So at least gives you a chance to prepare and know how many people you're about to fight to try to take back the bridge. But to get in and out of the room, there's only one entrance, unfortunately. Pilot seat's in the middle of the bridge. And the bridge, again, has its own weapon locker. A smaller one. I do like it's under glass where it's locked, and it does have that space, as well as a fire extinguisher and one of the blasted relays that no one's going to like. There are smaller turrets on this ship. This is a remote gunner seat right there, and then the co-pilot seat is off to the right. The pilot is in the middle, which is actually quite welcome. This ship has decent visibility for such a size of a ship. It feels a lot like the gunship version of the Polaris. Back many eons ago, when the Polaris came out, when the Polaris was concepted, let me step back a step, the sales pitch was, if you want to go defensive, get the Hammerhead. If you want to go offensive, get the Polaris. But over time, the Polaris far outshined anything that the Hammerhead could do, at least in the current climate, especially before the days of NPC gunners. Note the PDS turrets. There are 3 PDCs that are on top, and then there's 2 more on the bottom. There's 2 directly facing the rear of the ship with excellent lines of sight that they can both coordinate together to get the torps and missiles off your back while you're moving away from a fight or engaging in a different direction, I guess is the nice way to put it. But there is a triangle pattern. There is some line of sight issues if you are extremely close. And be sure to read up on firing arcs, where these have a minimum activation distance and the long distance they operate at is shortened, and the amount of damage that they can do has been modified. These are the same size PDSs as everyone else's, and in fact, I had the option to put my pepper boxes on here for my Idris T kit, so the ones that fire the size 1 missiles. I think it has 16 size 1 missiles on each one of the pepper boxes. Obviously, once they fire completely and they're out, as in they're useless now. But they would be probably pretty useful as anti-fighter cover. Additionally, the PDSs have a problem right now where they seem to be attacking ships that are too big that they can really not do much to. But I'm sure that will be addressed over time. The ship itself is a beautiful vessel, and I think you should consider it definitely if you're on a CCU path. Do be mindful that the further and further up you go, though, this is kind of like the end of a CCU path line. I actually got in on this for 410. Your mileage may vary. I do not expect anything more than probably a small price increase when this gets released in a day or two. And I'm going to end this video with the schedule on IAE, so you should be seeing that on your screen now, the full schedule. Remember that if you miss the original sale at the end, all of them are available again for the finale. And don't get the FOMO. This ship is not a limited edition ship. It is a wonderful ship. It is a gunship. Be sure to talk with your org mates, your friends, and see if only one of you needs it, or 2 of you have it, the 2 of the most active people. And then crew that ship, and then get some more ships that you could really use for other things. Bear in mind, we're kicking and screaming. CIG is getting closer and closer to player outposts, and if that continues down that path in 2026, these type of ships will be needed to clear things, but they aren't that useful for building things or moving large amounts of equipment into place. A ship like this would be good to escort an ironclad or a C2 or M2 Herc, or if the finally comes out, you've got your Liberators and other ships like that. There's so many vessels that really you need to consider, and don't use them as fodder for this ship unless you really have to. I can't stress that enough. This more applies to players that are coordinating with a group, even just 2 or 3 folks. And I'll leave you with one of the nicer spots I really did like. It's the crew quarter areas, but it's the mess area. They did a great job RSI-fying this. You know, it goes without saying, there's going to be shower toilets and hygiene and all that crap. But This right here is a nice touch. The mini little Polaris slash Zeus touches, a lot of the lessons learned by the teams developing through the concepting and all the processes and the pipeline that goes into white boxing, gray boxing, form fitting all this stuff together, haggling over what exactly the concept really meant and what the spirit of the ship is and what the RSI design language is. This room to me is a graduation ceremony. It's something that is truly special. And even though you can't use the damn pool table, eventually you will. And while this area is probably only going to be used when you're not in combat, which the ship doesn't like to be in that situation, it is a pretty cool place to hang out. And if you get nothing else out of this video, do yourself a favor and check out the main deck and check out the mess hall in it. And ignore the fact that the engineering is still not in for 4.4, and ignore the fact that we haven't even been able to test it much. But the pathfinding on this ship, the design language of the ship, the clean lighting of the ship, we take it all for granted now. And a lot of the ships that came before hopefully will get these treatments back in the future. So I'll leave you with that as a message of hope. Thank you to my long-term subscribers for putting up with me. Yes, I still make content for Star Citizen. I am making a few other videos as well. One coming up is about XR platforms such as the Steam Frame compared to the Vision Pro and the excitement of all of that. So on the Star Citizen front, I am definitely going to be very active during IAE, and of course I'm always active. I've been here since the beginning of the project, and I'll be here long after, until the end of the project, whenever that ends up being, hopefully decades from now. So again, most importantly, thank you for being here.